Be the first thing.
We used to have a
Welcome
cat.
to our backyard brothers, our backyard feline broad podcast. Um, we're joined by a guest who's going to give insightful analysis about some football later. And then there's the cat. So, so yeah, okay. Um, anyway, we're gonna talk about some reviews for football. In particular, I changed the way that I was presenting this because, and I'm pretty sure you guys will agree. When we had done season reviews and previews in the past, it was a full stuffed podcast and pretty intense and pretty long and pretty packed full. And so I thought, why don't we just do one division per podcast and we can talk about other things rather than just a full huge slate of NFL stuff for 3 straight weeks. And so we're splitting it out a little bit. And so, but we'll get there in a little bit. First, I didn't check my agenda that I had sent out. I think we're not doing a memory today because we want to make sure we hit Dustin's PTI. Um, and so the first, we're just going to talk basketball minute. First, we're just jumping right into there. There's a couple college basketball topics I have, but let's talk about the All-Star game first, and how we all felt about that. Dustin, you want to start with that?
Yeah. So going through, I guess, All-Star weekend day by day, starting with the Rising Stars tournament. I thought that was great. It was competitive. It was fun. And it was good. Everything went well with the Rising Stars Challenge. The winning team becomes the fourth team in the All-Star tournament, which is great. Team Candace. And then on Saturday with the 3-point contest and the dunk contest, Mac McClung, 3 consecutive dunk contest victories. There's a lot of context saying that, he's kind of saved the dunk contest by bringing some great excitement back to it. That, basically he shows up for 1 week in February every single year. He plays for the Osceola Magic, the G League team that feed into the Magic. I don't even know if he starts for them. Then he gets promoted to an NBA level just before All-Star game so he can participate in the dunk contest because he's that good. He had 3 perfect 50 dunks in a row, so it was fantastic to see that every single dunk, the judges thought there's no way that could have been better. And I agree, they're fantastic. I forget who was second place, but he wasn't close. And then,
quick question: is that the only guy to ever do that? 3 perfects in a row, or can you?
No.
Is that not as uncommon as I think?
No, it's uncommon, but it's happened several times before. 2016 was the best dunk contest ever. Zach LaVine and Aaron Gordon, basically they kept giving them 50s because they kept doing like between the legs from the free throw line kind of stuff, and like it went into multiple sudden death overtimes. It went longer than just the normal 2 or 3 rounds. And so 2016 was like that, where multiple 50s happened in a row until Dwayne Wade gave Aaron Gordon a 9 instead of a 10 and gave it to Aaron Gordon. The victory went to Zach LaVine. But anyway, 3-point contest was great. Tyler Hero won the 3-point contest. It wasn't as high scoring as it has been in the past, but Tyler Hero was the winner. And then on to All-Star game. The 4 different teams were broken up. You had the OGs, basically All-Stars that have had multiple All-Star appearances, like 10 plus. You had Team World, basically, so all the All-Stars from not the United States. Then the other team was basically kind of like the new up-and-comer All-Stars, and then the Rising Stars. And so those 4 teams all faced off, and I believe it was, I'm trying to remember who won the different games, but Team Shaq ended up winning the whole tournament, which is the OGs. And
they won it pretty handily, 41-25.
Oh,
As far
wow.
as the flow of the games, like I thought the first game, like it was competitive. Some defense was played, but it still like had that fun. There's a fun dunk contest, 3.5. Half court shots were still shot and made. Athletic dunks were still done, but it wasn't, it wasn't a backyard, kind of game. There was still competition there because the teams wanted to win. Once in the second part, in the championship round, Team Shaq kind of went away with it in the first part of the game, and at that point, it turned into just a fun little thing that they just kept doing silly things back and forth. And so, but the first two games were great and they were fun. So I liked it. I don't know if you guys watched it or if you watched the highlights of it and have any reactions here. I know I've talked for a lot here.
I watched the highlights, and I think you captured it great. There were a couple of really good games. I was really cheering for Team Candace to pull off that that win against Shaq, and her team got really close. I think it was 40-35 or something like that.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, I felt it was more competitive than it's been in years, and that was the goal of putting it at the cap at 40 points, and you can't just dick around the whole time, except of course they did in the game you're talking about, near like in the second half, no one was really trying anymore because Shaq had already won. So
Yeah.
or not really second half, but the second half of the game. So
Yeah, a few minutes into it, it was 29-13 or something, and at that point, it just became a show off contest.
That makes sense. I don't know that I have a whole lot to add, like from watching it, because I didn't get to see a whole lot of it. I did watch highlights in preparation for the pod, but I think you kind of expressed well the overall sentiment of the All-Star weekend. I think a lot of what I've seen, like on the internet, the opinion of the All-Star weekend was somewhat improved, but people still aren't happy with the setup of the 40-point setup, or what, the 41 points. But you can never please everybody. You know what I mean? I think overall it's a success because they're breeding competition instead of just trying to figure out the best way to sell jerseys, because that's not how you speak to us. The way to speak to true fans of the game is the purest form of the sport, and as much of it as we can get for free is how I would say, you know what I mean? And then, yeah, I think I think you covered it. Mac McClung, you said he is in the G League, but is just the best at dunking. Is that because he's just not good at other stuff, or what? Physical? Is it a physical thing?
Yeah, he's small. He's probably 6'1", 6'2".
Okay.
He's small.
White kid.
Yeah,
So
white kid.
Mhm.
Looks like he's like fresh out of northern Minnesota. Like
Is that the kid that had green hair a couple of years ago that impressed Shaq with a dunk?
Did he have
Or is
green
that
hair?
a different white kid?
I don't know. I don't know about that, but no, he has hops. His head's always right at the rim, and he did a catch between the legs, double pump backwards dunk while jumping over a car. Like that.
Okay,
That
at
was
6'1", that makes sense. Okay, fair enough. And so he's just a super creative dunker, but maybe not physically skilled enough in the other aspects of the game to be successful.
He's too small, too slow, too weak. He can't. He would not stand in the post. He couldn't do that, and then not good enough as a shooter on the outside. And so he's good enough to be in the G League, right? He's not one of the 300 best players in the world, but he's one of the 500 best.
400 or 500, yeah.
He's one of the 500 best players in the world. And so he's fantastic, but not elite.
Gotcha. Thanks for that explanation. I was just curious to hear a little more about that guy, because that is super intriguing that you can get 3 perfect scores in a row. The dunk you described and that I saw online was impressive. And so I just wanted to know a little bit more about, like, well, if you're that great at that one thing, is it because you just focused on this? But the physical attributes that you described make it very difficult to succeed against the guys that are in the league.
And let's give some love to. I remember when he was in college at Texas Tech. He was great. He was a great player at Texas Tech. I think he actually, if he did, I know he was first team All Big 12. He may have even won the Player of the Year in the conference. And so he was a great basketball player. He's just kind of like Jimmer Fredette, just a little too slow and a little too too small to play the league level for that long. But I saw a funny little stat that came out that said that because you get money, obviously, when you win the dunk contest, you get a ton of money. And he's made more money in his 3 dunk contest appearances than he's made in any salary for his whole career. So, but
That's a
combined.
sick night of work. I gotta say.
Well,
So
yeah.
Kevin, I think it was Kevin Love that said something, and I want to make sure that I say I'm quoting Kevin Love here. Who said, if you want to save the dunk contest, remind the NBA that Mac McClung, little white kid, is winning the dunk contest during Black History Month.
Oh
Oh,
man.
why? Why? What?
Oh my gosh.
Oh no! Someone protect Matt McClung for a little bit. He didn't say that, so just. Oh man.
Cody, do you have anything about basketball?
I don't. I'll just leave it to what you
Okay.
guys said. You guys covered it
All right.
well.
The only other thing that I'm going to mention, college basketball is coming up pretty soon as far as March Madness, probably in 3 weeks. So there was a big game the other night. Kansas, number 23 in the country, went to Provo to play BYU and got their ass kicked. BYU won 92-57 in that game, and the largest loss in the Bill Self era for Kansas. And so, yeah, BYU is one of those bubble teams, but with that win, that might have pushed them in. So,
Uh, didn't South the SC women's team lose for the first time in forever too? That should probably get a mention. And
UConn beat
then
them. Yeah.
UConn, yeah, and then they had great success last year on the men's team. UConn did. Who there was another pretty big college upset that I saw that I wanted to mention, but it's escaping me right now. Can anybody think of it?
Right now.
Okay. Well, that was the main one that I wanted to mention was SC losing. I know that was pretty big news. And then, yeah, no, I think that would be it for me. I'd be ready to wrap up if everybody else will.
Yeah. All right. We're going to review the Big Ten conference in football. This doesn't take very long. Our previous 2 conferences we reviewed are probably taking about 10, 15 minutes at max. So we'll look at this real quick. So Big Ten conference. Here are the teams, if you all remember. So looking at UCLA, they finished with a losing record, 5-7. Did not go to a bowl game. Were one of the worst offenses in the country, 18.4 points per game. They were awful. Head coach Deshaun Foster in his first year, obviously some growing pains for that head coach. So,
Former Panther running back Deshaun Foster.
yeah, and former UCLA running back. He went
Man,
back to his on school. Yeah, he was a
I
good
never
player.
really, I didn't care for the Panthers, but I really liked his style of play, like on Madden and stuff. So thanks for clearing that up.
Yeah. If you guys have anything to mention on any of these, stop me. But I'm rolling through these pretty quickly. Illinois had a great season, 10-3. They won the Citrus Bowl. They beat South Carolina, SEC team. Their numbers don't show how good they were, but 10-3 is a great season from anyone. And head coach Brett Bielema, he's been great on almost everywhere he's gone, from Wisconsin to Arkansas, now to Illinois. I think there's one more stop in there somewhere, but so he has this team playing really well. Luke Altmaier, that quarterback, was really good. I think I heard that he might be declaring for the draft, but he may also be returning. I think he has one more year of eligibility left if he wants to come back to Illinois. Don't know. Cody might know all those better than I do. So.
Yeah,
I don't
so
understand.
Brett Bielema, he was Arkansas coach, and he was not well liked, because he struggled here at Arkansas. They're happy to get rid of him. But his philosophy was always that a good balance between run and pass is 70% run. And, and so it's interesting to look at some of these numbers, with the running back versus, 325 passes from this quarterback, 21 touchdowns. Like these are good numbers, and it shows that, this coach may be balanced a little bit better, but at the same time, Josh McCray, 100 rushes, 5 yards a carry. That's great.
Yeah. You've got to be able to play to the strengths of your team, right? You can't just take your philosophy and stick it wherever it goes. You have to be able. Even Brett Bielema, who likes to run the ball, if he joins his team and he realizes, hey, these guys are really good, the wide receiver position, the quarterback, he's got to lean into that, even if he doesn't want to as much. So. Indiana, obviously a fantastic season that no one saw coming. They went to the college football playoff. Lost to Notre Dame in that game, but 11-2 season. At one point, they were 10-0, I think, maybe even 11-0, and then lost their last 2 games. No, 10-0, and lost to Ohio State, then beat Purdue badly. Kurt Cignetti, that head coach that came over from James Madison, best coaching job in the country, getting Indiana to go from 6-6 to 11-2. So that's fantastic job by him. Curtis Rourke was amazing as well at that quarterback. 27 touchdowns, 4 picks of the season. Iowa went 8-5. They had much better offense. If you remember, they were dead last year in offense, and this year 67th, middle of the pack essentially. They did lose the Music City Bowl to Missouri. Kirk Ferentz has been there 26 years now, and doesn't look like he has any other plans to go anywhere else. Maryland, bad season for them, 4-8 on the year, hundreds and just about everything there. So just not a very good season there. Michigan, one of the best defenses in the country, third in rushing yards allowed, 92.6 per game. And it showed up when they beat 2 teams that they weren't supposed to beat. One was Ohio State, who ended up winning the national championship. They beat them in Columbus. And then they also beat Alabama in the ReliaQuest Bowl. No one saw either one of those coming, and both of those were because of a great defensive performance by this Michigan team. So Sharon Moore, he's done well enough to hope for bigger things to come in the future for the Wolverines.
Yeah, I had my doubts against Sharon Moore when he was coming in this season, but he proved me otherwise this year.
I think Kalen Mullings performed really well, but there just wasn't enough production in the passing game. I think, as you can tell from the numbers, when you're out throwing, when you're throwing more balls to the other team than you are your own end zone, it's going to be issues anywhere. So I don't know that that's really more coaching staff than personnel. That feels like a personnel problem there, and that'll probably sit on the shoulders of Davis Warren there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking of Davis Warren there, 1,100 yards. I mean, if you're playing, 10 to 12 games in a season, you're only getting 100 yards each game. That's pretty atrocious.
Yeah, I mean, just underperforming across the board. 6 touchdowns. There are people that have thrown for that in a game.
Right.
I mean, it looks like they were
overly impressive, granted, but it's happened.
To be
133 passing yards per game, and so he probably missed a game somewhere here and there, but as well.
To be fair for Davis Warren, is he was not the starting quarterback all year. There was another quarterback, last name being Orgy. Yes, I said that correctly. He
Alex.
Was Alex Orgy. He was quarterback for I think the first 4 or 5 games even.
Just quarterback by committee. They're all kind of together.
You deserve a laugh for that. That was a good joke, Dustin. Yeah, but you're not allowed in the locker room when they're in there talking about it.
Yeah. Is it a huddle or is it more of like a circle?
Ohio State doesn't want to go film to get some game plan material. Anyway, okay, Michigan State, 5-7 on the year. Obviously not good enough to qualify for a bowl game. Had first year for Jonathan Smith, who was at Oregon State the previous year.
I just thought of one more Michigan joke. That's it. Did they ever run the tush push?
Actually,
I love it.
If you to know how he got his last name. Anyway.
Minnesota, 8-5. They won the Mayo Bowl against Virginia Tech. PJ Fleck has been there now 8 years, and he always has good teams in Minnesota. Just never quite good enough to win a conference, but always really good teams.
I want to say, hold on, go back for just a second. My joke is that Daniel Jackson and Anthony Smith look like each other in disguise. Like poor disguise. Oh, no. What Daniel Jackson? I don't know Daniel Jackson. I don't know Anthony Smith. But do you ever see them in the same room at the same time? I don't think so.
Nebraska. Nebraska went 7-6. They got back to the bowl game for the first time. I think they had the longest drought of any college football team. They're getting to a bowl game until this year. I don't think they'd been to a bowl game since 2015 until this year. And so they're finally back. 7-6. Won the Pinstripe Bowl against Boston College. Dylan Raiola, the true freshman, the best quarterback in in high school coming up. He had his struggles, obviously, just as a true freshman. 12 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, but I think he made enough good plays for them to be really excited for years to come.
I feel like one more win than a loss should not constitute success.
It's kind of the journey. You have to take the full view, right? Because they hadn't made it to a bowl game since 2015, and now they did. So it's the progress. It's the full.
I'm saying they don't deserve a bowl game with one more win than their losses.
Well, they were.
That's my.
They were They were 500. They were 6-6, and then they won their bowl game to get above 500. So.
Well.
Yeah.
That is, in my opinion, and we're allowed to differ. We're still praising mediocrity at that point. Hey, good job. I mean, hey, flip a coin. They might win at that same rate. That's not success to me.
I could agree with that. It's just the bowl games, as many as possible, so you can get more money for. So.
Agreed. I just wanted to share that doesn't feel like. I'm not bragging about that. One more win than a loss. You know what I mean? I don't feel like you did your job if that's the case.
Right. Okay, Northwestern had a tough season, went 4-8, were one of the worst teams, 128th out of 133 teams in offense, 17.8 points per game. Yards were under 300 per game. This was a bad offense. And so they'll look to try and change up something there because that's not good enough, obviously. Ohio State, quite a season, 14-2. They lost to Oregon in the regular season. They lost to Michigan in the regular season. But because of the expanded 12-team playoff, they make it in as the 8th seed. Then they destroy Tennessee, the SEC team, 42-17 in the first round. Then they get their revenge and destroy Oregon in the Rose Bowl, the second round game. Then they beat Texas pretty handily in that Cotton Bowl, the semifinal game, and then they beat Notre Dame handily. They win all 4 of these playoff games by multiple possessions to win the national championship. They were the best defense in the country by points, allowing 10.9 points per game. That's insanely good. Yards per game allowed as well is also really good, 241. Number 1 as well. So defense wins championships in this case. Their offense, obviously, also 42, 41, 28, 34. Offense not bad either. So Ryan Day, I think he's earned a new contract. So, but a lot of these guys will be gone. Jeremiah Smith will be probably a first-round pick.
Well, Jeremiah Smith was a freshman actually this year, so he still has like another 2 years there.
Wow. So who's the other? Okay, you're right.
Isn't that crazy?
But he will be a first-round pick though. So
yeah, I mean,
when he gets there,
he's
not next year.
First-round pick as a freshman. He still has 2 years to go. So
yeah,
crazy.
Will Howard had a really nice performance last year for sure.
Yeah. Okay, Oregon.
Anytime your completion percentage is above 70, like that's fantastic.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's really good. 3 out of the 4 you're hitting the right guy. Can't be mad at that.
Yeah. Okay, Oregon was the only team that went undefeated through the regular season. They went 12-0, and they won the Big Ten championship game against Penn State, and then they got destroyed by Ohio State so they're going 13-1. You can't discount what they did. They had the best regular season of any team in college football, but they just couldn't get it done in a big playoff game. So I don't know how many people are going to be there next year. Dylan Gabriel, I think, just spent his last season of eligibility, right? So they'll have a new quarterback. But he played really well too, 73% as well for him, 28-6. So Heisman Trophy finalist.
Yeah, that's a great season for the Ducks with just a terrible matchup against a stronger Buckeyes team, I think. And I didn't even I was kind of caught off guard the way that they lost to them in that game.
Yeah. Okay, the Penn State Nittany Lions had a great season as well, 12-3, lost the Big Ten championship game. Then they won the first round of the playoff against SMU, then lost in a very close game in that Orange Bowl, that semifinal, to Notre Dame. Good defense there too, top 10 everywhere. Drew Aller played really well at quarterback. A lot of Jalen Reed there in the secondary. Look at all those numbers. He just dominated from that position. Whoops. So
I was going to say, so just a small topic of discussion. What is it that's keeping James Franklin and Penn State behind? They can never seem to win the big game. You know, they can get to the games. They got to the Big Ten championship game. They got to the playoffs, the one playoff game, but they never seem to be elite, but they're always on the edge. So what's that last thing they need to do to get over it?
Well, I think I would disagree with your thesis. I would say getting to the playoff is a pretty elite season to begin with, even if there's expanded 12 teams in there. I mean, only if you're asking how do they become the one team that's happy at the end of the year, like that's one thing. But so like that's a really obviously high bar that only one team is getting at the end of the year. But I think that they're right where they want to be. They got to the Big Ten championship game. They got to the playoffs, like you said. I don't think there's anything wrong in Happy Valley.
So then the thing I see, and I understand that the playoffs expanded to 12 teams, and that's probably why they were able to get in. At least for this year. But every year though, they don't seem to ever. Okay, before this, they never got to the playoffs. I don't think. And then this year, expanded to 12 teams, they got into it. They win one playoff game. That's good. The question, I guess, I'm wondering is if they keep this up every year, they just stop at playoffs. When are they going to move on from James Franklin, or are they just fine? Oh no, we're good, just finishing in the playoffs before we ever get a national championship? Are they okay with that? We'll never want to win a national championship. We just want to be good. You see my question, like the line that needs to be drawn.
Let me play devil's advocate a little bit here. So to both of your points, I hate Penn State. I think that their creepy coach has cursed them, and they should have had far less success than they had. And I don't mean their creepy coach James Franklin. You got to go into the past to get to who I'm talking about. So I think that they're over whatever hump we're talking about. An 11-1, or what was it, 12-1 record, and then going into 12-3. Okay, so a 12-3 record is not. Look, it's not abysmal. I'm pretty harsh on teams. Like you need to perform, right? They just didn't perform when they needed to, and they lost 2 of those 3 games at very inopportune moments. Other than that, it was a successful season. They're putting up numbers. Can we switch back to the stats of the players? Everybody's playing what I have called effectively up to this point. If it was some other team, the quarterback and the running back are both being productive. The defense isn't playing bad. So they're at a point where that's great. Every team wants to be the team to win the Natty, right? And Franklin put them in a position to do that, but they just didn't. So I wouldn't say that his job is at risk automatically from not winning the Natty, because he put his team in a position to do that, but they did lose. They lost the games that they needed to win, and that's the case for any team. You know what I mean? It's just the way that the ball drops at the end. But when we go to the next team that only had one win, when we look at Purdue here in a second, we'll see absolute failures across the board. That's not the case here with Penn State. As much as I dislike them as a team, they performed well. I couldn't say that they didn't.
Right, right. And I guess I'm sorry to cut you off, Scott. My last thing that I would say about that is, and you're not wrong at all. They're a great team. I understand that. Every single year they have a great season. Every single year, James Franklin gets them to where they need to be. But the question is, when does it become an issue that that's all they're doing? That's all they ever do at this point is, and you can ask almost every Penn State fan is they can never win, quote unquote, the big game. They can never win the game. And so they're a great team and they're going to be a great team every year. But when does that become the issue? Is that they're never becoming the team. They're never becoming that team. They're always having a good season. That's all. It's always just a good season.
Cody, can I flip this around and ask you a question? Should the Bills fire Sean McDermott? Yes or no?
Probably if it keeps going the way it is, yeah.
Should the Ravens fire John Harbaugh?
I've actually had that for a while. Yes, they should.
Okay, you think differently than the rest of us.
Yeah,
I would stand by Dustin's statement in saying that. I would agree that we have a strong difference in opinion on this topic specifically. That, look, if I give you these kind of numbers and you tell me, you can do it all great, but you just don't give me the championship. Like, dude, do you understand what you're asking of me? I checked every box except for the one thing that takes everything coming together, and it's not good enough. Like, I don't know how to appease you. Yeah. So I can't put all that on James Franklin himself. When you win a national championship, it's an organizational success. Every one of us takes on the same responsibility, the same accountability. When Scott fails, I say, hey, Scott, you got to pick this up. We got to do this better. When Yancey fails, Scott, Cody, and Dustin all do the same thing for him. When we're a team, it has to be that way. And so just speaking from a team dynamic, it's unfair to say, when do we fire James? Because we just can't win that one game.
Yeah, the question I would have, sorry, let me ask this one more, is Cody, like, who would they hire? You got 6 coaches that are better than you at the end of the season, right? If you know, in this situation, and none of those 6 are leaving their teams. Like, why would you want to take a step down to a coach that isn't consistently winning as much as your current coach? Like, sure, you can't get to the big game, but any decision you make, you're taking a downgrade.
Yeah, we certainly have differences in this kind of philosophy, and this is not like the other one where it's 2-2. This is a 3-1.
This is like a GM philosophy, I think, though. This is asking, that's asking a big, like a higher order question.
I mean, Cody, if you're the owner of a football team and let's say you're the owner of the Bills and you fire Sean McDermott and I'm a head coach coming in, I'm like, wow, I could be the head coach of the Bills, but they just fired Sean McDermott. I mean, obviously the expectations there are you win the Super Bowl or you get fired. I don't know if I want to be that coach.
Yeah, it's almost like beheading. When you start beheading kings, nobody's stepping up to be king. You got to just give it to somebody and say that you're the king now. You know what I mean? And when you enact that type of philosophy, I think I have to agree again with Scott here, and that, I don't even want success if it's this black and white, and like I don't have no wiggle room to try harder next year, because there is no next year because we lost this game by 3 points. I think that makes for a bad culture and an untrusting culture within a football organization. But I'd be interested to hear, like, if you have a rebuttal to points, if we misunderstood what you were saying, or I would be interested to hear that, because I think this is a really good topic that could even breed a whole nother different part of a podcast, to be honest with you.
Should. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I have some thoughts, and I'll say those really quick. And if we want to discuss it more, we can just do it for another time. But and I think you guys are understanding me. I think my thought. Let's look at the reversal of this. We've talked about new head coaches coming into a team and firing them at the first season. I think we all disagreed with that, right? I think we should give a new coach, in my opinion, at least 3 years to do something with it. If they can show change and progress, then you reward them with, all right, we're going to keep you for a few more years. And on the other side, I think it's true too, is if you can come in, you can be consistent and really well, then you give him a lot of years. Let's go with John Harbaugh. He's been there since what, 2012 or something?
2008.
More, so 2008. So he's had, coming up on 20 years. Okay, he's got one Super Bowl, right? He's got one Super
He
Bowl.
won a Super Bowl, right?
Okay, so he's got one Super Bowl out of that in 2012. Was it 2011?
2011.
Okay, so about 4 years after. So now it's been nearly 16 years or so since. And they haven't been able to execute to that point. So that's my point, is like, all right, so you've got us one Super Bowl, awesome. And that can be a different discussion. Is one Super Bowl enough to keep you there forever? Maybe. But it's when it elongates to that long, 16 years, and you're good. You've gotten us to the playoffs almost every year or something like that. That's great. But then again, the point of the league is not just to be good. The point of the league is to go win a dang Super Bowl, right? You did it one time, go do it again. You've had 16 years. What's stopping you? You've had all this time, okay? The Bills, Sean McDermott's been there only since what, 2016, 2017, right? Something like that. And so, in my opinion, if I was GM, he has more time, okay? But my point I was saying is, if he stays in that spot, he's not winning, and 5, 6, 7 more years pass, yeah, I'm firing him because he's not getting us a Super Bowl. That's my point. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying I'm firing Sean McDermott today. Heck no.
I think my only comment is, Cody, don't start playing the lottery.
Hey, attaboy. So, quick question before we move on, just on what is your, okay, you're the GM, right? You're the decider of deciders when it comes to coaching decisions. And I'm going to be the coach. And my question to you is, what is your prerequisite? How many Super Bowls do I owe you per 5-year contract?
For a 5
Do I owe you 5? Do I owe you 5 Super Bowls in 5 years? What's my threshold? How do I appease? No, this is an honest question, so I can tell you I can provide that or I can't provide that realistically with what I have.
In a 5-year period, I expect one Super Bowl.
Okay.
Now, it also depends on what team we're talking about. If you're being hired for the Browns, I'm not going to expect a Super Bowl in 5 years from that. But if you're taking over the Bills, if Sean McDermott leaves it at a 11 or 12 something win, then yeah, you have 5 years.
Now, all right. Now, what of these, since we're classifying it per team, if I'm taking up too much time, you guys shoo me off this question. But if out of what tier of team does your contract like shorten or extend that 5-year number that you just gave? Because it's like so if I'm taking over the Bills, does that 5 years stay the same or go down?
It would stay the same in my opinion. Yeah.
Okay, and now the Browns, how many years do I get? 8? Do I get 8 years to take the Browns to the Super Bowl?
That's probably a good explanation, because you're given 3 years first to show me a change, right? I'm giving you 3 years to show that you can change the team around, and at 3 years you should be at least around 9 or 10 wins. And at that point, yeah, you have 5 years after that to give me a Super Bowl.
Ooh. Ooh, you're going to be rich someday. You hold people to them standards. I'll tell you that, sir. I'm with it. I just can't. I'm like, woo, I feel like I would fall short there, man. That's a big task.
I think we should talk about that more in the future, but let's try to move on with our other. We have a full division to look at too in the NFL here. But Purdue was one of the worst in the whole country, 130th in points, 115 per game, won one game. That one game was against Indiana State, an FCS game. First game of the year, they lost all 11 of their next games. So that's Purdue
Lost is a really nice word.
for 66-7. Yeah. And 66-0. Yeah.
Oh man. I
They
mean, these
did.
guys were writing the handbook on how not to lose football games. Like,
They did almost beat Illinois here, 50-49. That was the one great one that they had. So, okay, Rutgers went 7-6, lost the Rate Bowl to Kansas State. Greg Schiano is there as long as he wants. He's now in his 16th season. He's got that team turned around. They were bad before he got there the first time. He made them great. Then they got bad again. He got there for the second time. He's turned them around again. But he's just a great coach at Rutgers. USC 7-6 season. Lincoln Riley has gotten worse all 3 years he's been there for USC. I think they went to 8-7 or 9-7, 9-8-7. So they're going down the ladder there. Miller Moss 18 touchdowns, 9 picks on the season.
Miller Moss looks like a Disney villain.
Washington on the opposite side of that, they went to the national championship the year before, 6-7 last year after losing just about everybody. Jed Fish comes over from Arizona, bare cupboards trying to restock them. So that's what's happening in Washington. So apparently, though, Jed Fish has 4 more years to get them a national championship. So
I don't think Scott's going to let you live that one down for a couple of teams, Cody.
I don't blame him, but I'm going to hold my. I'm going to hold my
throw
position.
that quick jab out there real quick. I like standards. I just think yours are really, really tough.
To be fair, there's a lot more teams in college than there are in NFL. So that I have to look at that and see how it changes. So with NFL, I'm sticking there.
Yeah. Okay, Wisconsin didn't make a bowl game this year, 5-7 on the year. And Luke Fickell in his second year, 13-13 record. He is kind of struggling over there in Wisconsin. And that's all of them. We look at this. This was pretty good. Cody got it right on the button. Oregon versus Penn State in the Big Ten championship game, with Oregon winning and Penn State getting to the playoff. The rest of us had Oregon and Ohio State in there. Dustin still had Oregon winning. Cody and Dustin still had Ohio State in the playoff. So we were pretty good on this one. No one had Indiana in the playoff, but can't blame any of us there.
No.
I'm wondering why Dustin had UCLA in there.
Yeah, I don't know, but
give him a few more years.
So any discussion? We've talked a lot longer than we thought we would, but any other talk about the Big Ten?
Just what a strong showing from, surprising teams like Indiana, but then you had how many was there? Three playoff teams from the Big Ten? Four playoff teams from the Big Ten. So yeah, I mean, talking about 1/3 of the playoff teams from a single conference, out of the Power 5 versus Power 4 now. So
Power 4.
Yeah. 1/3 out of 4, you're doing better than you're expected. So really good.
I'm moving us along to the next one. Share screen right here. First of all, I want to show you a key because you're going to see a couple of colors here. Sorry, Dustin, with the eye winking. So you're going to see some colors based on just the recognition at the end of the year. The light blue is unanimous first team All-Pro. It's about as good as you can do. The orange, they had first team All-Pro votes, but it wasn't unanimous. The gold, second team All-Pro, no first team votes. And pink, no All-Pro votes, just went to the Pro Bowl. Those are the 4 different ways that people were honored this year in the NFL. So as we did last year, we have, if I can get this moving, we have each of us covering one of these teams. And so Dustin, take us away with the Chicago Bears, and you tell me when to move slides.
Yeah. So Chicago Bears had some big expectations coming into the season with the first overall pick that they spent on Caleb Williams, and obviously they moved away from Matt Eberflus in the middle of the season after they're pretty disappointed with the results at going 5-12 and being very bottom of the league in yards per game and near the bottom in points per game, and the defense wasn't great either. And so they did some good things. I like this offense best was turnovers, right? Didn't turn the ball over too much, but got sacked the most. So definitely some issues there on offense. Let's move forward. Caleb Williams showed some signs of really good, but is definitely going down as one of the worst rookie seasons ever, especially with how much he got sacked. Go ahead. He had a lot of weapons here, but he couldn't get to them very much because he kept getting sacked. I move forward there. Any other? Let's actually go back. Actually, so DJ Moore, even though he had 98 catches for almost 1,000 yards, only 6 touchdowns. That's a good season, but overall wasn't enough to get wins. This was the struggle here, was allowing too many sacks. Let's see. Good players, but nobody jumps off. There's obviously none of your colors have shown up yet. Go ahead. I like that 129 tackles for TJ Edwards and 4 sacks and 1 interception. That's a fantastic season. That may deserve a color if the win total was a little higher.
Yeah.
And there we are. We have our first color with Jalen Johnson, 52 tackles, 2 interceptions, 8 passes defended. That is a very good season. But I like Kevin Byard at 130 tackles there. So I think we've said it before. If your safeties and corners are getting 70 to 100 plus tackles, that means that defense usually isn't doing so great when they're getting the tackles, not the linebackers. But this defense tried to keep them in the games, and ultimately it's the offense's inability to put points on the board.
We don't have to spend a whole lot of time on the backups, but
yeah, no names that I remember playing a lot here, so we can go forward. Yeah, no names that I see that I remember playing a lot or jumping off the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, a long snapper, since they punted a lot, was there on the screen there. 82 punts. That's quite a bit. 82 divided by 17, where we look at 5 punts a game or something. So yeah, lots of punts. If you're punting almost a third of your possessions each game, that's rough.
You guys remember hearing that he texted Caleb Williams about his punt number?
Oh,
and Caleb was like, "We're not going to be punting a whole lot," and actually, you punted almost more than anybody else. So,
right. I ought to thank him for that, getting you a bigger check, sending you to work more often.
Moved away from Matt Eberflus, especially after just not handling the Thanksgiving Day game very well and kind of dropping the game there. So Thomas Brown has stepped in. Thomas Brown has stepped in. Whether or not he's going to stay, we don't know yet. And so we'll see how this shakes up over the season. But in 5 games, we went 1-4 in 5 games, and so not great. We'll see how it shakes up in the offseason.
Okay. Let's. I'm going to stop share real quick so we can just talk. Dustin, any discussion and things like that about the Bears? Doesn't have to be a whole lot, but questions or anything like that.
We've talked a lot during the season about Caleb Williams, and we're all on the same page that, this was a struggle of the season. And I think that he was genuinely surprised with how difficult it was. And so, it's up to him to be humble, to get into the film room and into meetings with receivers and linemen and all of that, and focus on play design, when to pass, how to read defense, and be able to do that so he spends less time in the backfield running around hoping something pops up. And then it's up to management and GM to find a coach that can help him with that this offseason and hopefully do it very soon. They haven't hired a coach yet, right?
They did. Ben Johnson, the Lions
Johnson.
coordinator.
That's right. So yeah, Lions do not take many sacks. So that there we go with good play design, even from a slow quarterback. Caleb Williams is fast, he's athletic, and so if Ben Johnson can come in and teach him how to be a pocket passer and focus on only having to run, when absolutely necessary in order to find an opening, I think that Ben Johnson's probably the right one there.
I think I agree with your assessment that Caleb Williams needs to be humbled in a sense, and was by this season. I think as a podcast, we all four kind of sensed that he was overinflating the how good he was going to perform. But I do want to nod that his performance wasn't abysmal. There are glimmering spots of his talent that I can definitely see if he admits to himself that he needs to work on getting the ball out quicker, that the NFL, he's not going to out athletic everybody. There's a couple of things that if he fixes those, I would be more on board to being like, okay, so he was just believing in himself and overspoke his talent a little. And so I think that is there. I don't want to just dog the guy constantly because he wasn't pathetic. He stayed starting over a more senior quarterback than himself, and he didn't throw more interceptions than touchdowns. So, I mean, there are things he did have success in, but I think we all kind of spotted that he was having an overflated sense of what he was going to do in the game.
Percent, and I'm on board with that too. I mean, look again, those numbers at the very beginning that the Bears were actually really good at not turning the ball over, and that's not normal for a rookie quarterback. He only threw 6 interceptions all year.
Right, that's not bad. That's kind of impressive.
Yeah, 20 touchdowns versus 6 interceptions. That's a really good ratio for a rookie quarterback. Obviously, part of that is because he didn't let the ball go. He just took a sack.
Right.
And so he's got to get the ball out a lot quicker, and that's something that's got to improve. But I still think the Bears have a really good collection of weapons if Caleb Williams can improve and get him the ball.
I think I agree with pretty much everything that's been said. I think after the O-line fixes and just kind of fixing the sacks, the next thing that needs to be worked on is this whole mentality and attitude that Williams has about hero ball and things like that. I think the reason why he took so many sacks was because, like, look, nowhere, I'm Caleb Williams. I'll find a way out of this. I'm kind of running around and try to throw it off. And honestly, like, you just can't do that. If you're being rushed by NFL players, you got to get rid of that ball or something. And I mean, if you think you're going to fumble it, then yeah, take the sack because the sack's better than a fumble. But yeah, I think after the low line issues, I think it's just his attitude and his humility that needs to improve. And I think once he does that and stops playing hero ball, the Bears can improve a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just to wrap it up before we move on, I think I have good expectations for the Bears next season. Improving from 5 wins to say 8. Something like that, I think, is definitely there. And I think that it's easy to point to things that they can work on. And when you know what you can work on to be better, like, that's always good. And so while they had a tough season, it really showed a lot of things that they need to work on. And they're going to do it.
Yeah, I like that speed. And so let's try to keep it that sort of speed as we have a half an hour left. So are you seeing that now again? Because I've changed my screens. Okay. Cody is up with the Detroit Lions.
Okay.
So you're seeing we're document with the
the real and predicted.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to be seeing that yet. You're supposed to be seeing this one.
Perfect. There we go.
Okay.
All right. Detroit Lions 15-2 in the NFL. Extremely good season. They got the first round bye in the NFC, the first NFC North. As you can see, they're first in the NFL for points per game. Very good. 7th in defense. So just really overall a very good round team. They did lose their divisional round to Washington, which was a surprise to I think a lot of us. And kudos to Washington for that game. Oops, move forward here. Jared Goff, obviously one of the better quarterbacks in the league, 72.4% completion rate. I think we discussed earlier that anything above 70 is extremely impressive, really good. So
Was number one in the league. Yeah.
we're there in 37 touchdowns, almost 40 against only 12 interceptions. So very good, 112 rating, 35 rushes against only 56 yards. That's not really surprising. He's not really a scrambling or running quarterback. And then Orange, I remember it means some kind of All-Pro nomination, I think, right?
Yeah. Means he got some first team, but it wasn't unanimous.
Okay. So, and which is understandable. I mean, he definitely should have been up first team. So, all right, next one.
What I like here is that 35 rushes for 56 yards. That means that he was running for probably 2 to 3 seconds, per carry in order to gain 1.5 yards. Because he's slow.
Yes.
Thanks for walking us through that one, Dustin. Because he's slow. Y'all heard me?
All right. So then the offensive weapons here, I think that they're a very good collection of weapons. We got Sam Laporta, who's an excellent tight end, almost 730 yards, 7 touchdowns. That's exceptional for a tight end. Tim Patrick didn't come into the league or into the season, or excuse me, into this team until later in the season. Jameson Williams did a pretty good job, over 1,000 yards. Amon-Ra St. Brown, though, is that unanimous right there?
That's unanimous. Yes.
I thought so. He's been exceptional almost every single year. So that's not surprising. 12 touchdowns, over 1,200 yards, 115 receptions. And Jahmyr Gibbs is a great running back as well, with 16 touchdowns, over 1,400 yards. So exceptional offensive weapons. And then the offensive line, we just talked about sacks, right? They did it very good, extremely good in limiting snaps, and also not very many penalties as well. So Taylor Decker, that's the Pro Bowl one. Okay. Frank Ragnow and Penei Sewell. Penei Sewell is exceptional. 100% of snaps, only 3 penalties all year. And I'm not sure how many sacks he allowed, if any. So very good offensive line.
I wish that I could get the right metric, like the pass block win rate that PFF, Pro Football Focus, has. You have to have a subscription for that. You have to pay for it. That's the metric I want to show. That's the best metric, but this is the best that I could come up with this time. But I think the answer to that, though, is that I think he allowed, not only did he not allow a sack, I think he allowed 2 pressures all year. So
it's phenomenal.
That's crazy.
All right, on the defense, our defensive line, unfortunately lost. You mean Aiden Hutchinson there, not Levi Onwuzurike?
Oops. No, that's supposed to be Levi. I just forgot to change his picture. So,
okay.
Because Aiden Hutchinson didn't play all of the snaps. Aiden Hutchinson is in a backup role because this is by the number of snaps that they played.
Gotcha. I was going to say Aiden Hutchinson played a little bit. I think only a few weeks until he. I think tore his ACL and had to leave. But anyway, defensive line overall, they did pretty well. Definitely could have improved in several areas, but I think they will. I think one big loss was because they didn't have Aiden Hutchinson all year, but they did okay without him there. Linebackers, Alex Anzalone is a beast. He's so good. Even if he's not elected to a Pro Bowl or an All-Pro team, he's really good. And I think he had suffered an injury this year as well, so that's why his numbers aren't as well topped up as they should be. Jack Campbell, I think, is his second year in the league. He's doing very well as well. 131 tackles, which means that the running backs are not getting too far behind the lines, so they are doing what they need to do. And that is you have to remind me again, that's All-Pro, but not unanimous.
Second team All-Pro. Second
team All-Pro. Okay. And then corners, their defensive back secondary was also very good. Brian Branch is also phenomenal. 109 tackles, eight TFLs, a sack. Anytime someone in the secondary gets sacks is always impressive. Kirby Joseph did pretty well as well. They're both nominated to those postseason accolades. Terry Arnold did very good against what was it? Justin Jefferson, I think it was. Yeah, in their last game of the season, he was able to lock down Justin Jefferson really well. So they've got overall just a very good defense, very good team overall.
Joseph led the NFL with 9 interceptions this year. That's the reason that he is first unanimous All-Pro.
All right. Here in the second strings, I'm not sure if there's a whole lot of things to say other than maybe Khalif Raymond. He's a fantastic returner. Did very good for them.
Their
And then
second string quarterback has a very unfortunate last name.
Hooker and then Hooker. Yeah. And here, I'm not sure if there's any names sticking out to me right now either. So,
Don Hooker is his name if you read it slow enough.
Jack Fox, great punter, 51 yards on average. He was in the Pro Bowl. He's a
First All Pro.
Yeah, thank you. First team All Pro. And so he's very good punter. Went up against whoever that AFC punter was. I don't remember who, but they went very far together in that Pro Bowl game. Other than that, Dan Campbell. You're good. Dan Campbell is a fantastic coach. Aaron Glenn, great DC. Ben Johnson, good OC, which is why they're not there anymore. They went off to be their own head coaches there. So hoping to see that Dan Campbell can get us a Super Bowl next year. I guess to open up for discussion, I think that for what was expected, their season, it was very good. It did end disappointingly, not just for them, but anyone who wanted to see the Lions get their first Super Bowl appearance, let alone win. They lost to Washington in the divisional round, I believe it was. And so surprising, but kudos to Washington. They did very well. Overall, very good season, and just hope it can continue to get better. Moving on. What do you guys think?
The only thing that I'll say, again, it's so hard to win a Super Bowl. Only one team does it every year. The Lions were the best team in the NFL this year, and they just ran up against a team that was really hot in the playoffs, and that happens. And they lose both of their coordinators. I think Dan Campbell, though, will find some good replacements because he built that team with those two guys. He was the one that went out and hired those two guys when they weren't coordinators before, and so he has an eye for talent, and I think he'll find it again.
I think
I second the thought of, it's really hard to win a Super Bowl and that a lot of things have to go right. And not to bring this up again, they had fantastic offense, absolutely fantastic offense, but with all the injuries on defense, they still scored 31 points in that loss, but just couldn't stop Washington from scoring because of the defense there. And it's one of those things where the pieces just didn't fall into place come playoff time, and it was unfortunate for them.
Yeah, I agree that last season they had all the pieces for success, but now losing two different coordinators and all those injuries late in the season, I'm going to predict that the Lions are actually going to start to decline again because of the letdown of last year. And they finally did so good, but I think oftentimes that disheartens a lot of really good teams. That's not a guarantee that they fall apart, but I do feel like it was Dan Campbell putting all those things together, and now that those pieces are falling apart, I'm not sure that he'll be able to. I think he'll struggle to keep those things that he needed there to stay there, and just more is going to start to drop off, in my opinion. But I am excited to see if they can keep those things in place because there is a lot of talent on that Lions team.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to share this screen again and share the right one this time. Let's try to keep this to 10 minutes. We have about 20 minutes left. I'm sorry, Dustin. We're going to have to push it again. Your PTI.
Oh, sorry. I've been long-winded.
PTI discussion earlier.
We did have a good one. Yeah, that's right.
It was just kind of in the middle of the coaching philosophy. I'll try to bop through this. 11-6. The Green Bay Packers lost to the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles, 22-10. They were pretty good offensively, I would say, and then struggled on certain areas of the defense, specifically the passing yardage allowed, but played really well against the run game, and so they were a little too one-dimensional. I think that shot him in the foot. We can go on.
Come on.
Not a problem. Jordan Love, moderate success, but I feel like, what was that game where he cried? Some guy got injured and he was crying at the end of it, looking teary-eyed. Am I mistaken?
When he got injured, or when another?
He did not get injured. Another player got injured, and he was
I don't
crying
know.
about it. It was a leg injury. Somebody broke their leg. Am I confusing him altogether?
I mean, I don't know. I can't think of that one.
Okay, I'll move on. I was just going to say that I saw him kind of pouting on the sideline after a player got injured, and they started their success. Their success started declining rapidly. It was a game later in the season, just before the playoffs, but not in the playoffs. But I feel like I'm confusing this guy since you guys don't know who I'm talking about.
You might be talking about Romeo Dobbs or Christian Watson, one of those two that broke their leg. Yeah.
And do they play for the Packers or?
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe I'm right. Pretty decent success out of the running game. I don't know how much more I would ask out of Jacobs, up maybe about 700 yards. And yeah, okay. So just I think underutilization of weapons is how I would define the offense here. It seems like they just couldn't cohesively keep everything together towards the end of the season. Other than Josh Jacobs, I don't know who to really point out.
Mhm. Yeah.
Zach Tom, that was an all-pro performance, or okay,
Yep.
thank you. It looks like a really good, effective offensive line here. I would maybe advise Jenkins to get less penalties, but 5 isn't even that bad. We can move on. Performance, we'll shout out Gary for his, even though well, okay, I see the sacks and the forced fumbles is kind of what would get it, but not enough tackles, in my opinion, for the line as a team. Moving on. Linebacking core is where our tackles are coming from, it looks like, and that's second level. That would explain where we're having trouble, and probably because we're suffering against the short, quick pass game, in my opinion. Nobody to really point out here other than Walker for getting more than 100.
McDuffie looks like his beard is like air painted on.
That does look like he's like, no, guys, it's really my beard. I'm 24. Let me in. Somebody standing under him in a trench coat. Sorry. Xavier McKinney. The color was non-unanimous. Yeah.
Is unanimous. He
Unanimous.
was.
Sorry.
Mhm. Yeah, 8
8
interceptions.
tackles, 8 interceptions. Super impressive. That's just under the leaderboard, right?
Yeah.
Like second or third for the leaders. And then what was PD?
Pass deflections.
Pass deflections. 11 is that's up there. Yeah, so he would be what I would call the star of the defense, but you don't want your 2 safeties next to leading the team in tackles. That is not indicative of a good defense, if you're asking me. I feel like unless they're incredible and just getting to the ball, that's the third level of the defense, and they shouldn't be 2 of the leaders in the numbers as far as tackling goes.
Mm-hmm.
Quickly viewing over these guys, nobody has a funny face other than the T-Pain lookalike second string quarterback. And I don't see anybody that has numbers that's going to make me talk about them.
Yeah.
Does Devontae Wyatt have a really small head, or is it a bad picture?
Which guy?
I think this guy here, Devontae Wyatt. I think it's just the picture wasn't zoomed in as much as the others.
He does look very big body. Like, hey, don't forget that. Not just my chest. Don't forget to get my neck.
The one I'd point out is Edgerrin Cooper here, that rookie who had 87 tackles as a backup. Is insane.
Oh wow!
So,
thank you for. Yeah, I did not catch that, but that is really impressive for a rookie second stringer. No, you're not going to hear me talking about these guys too much. Good job, Big Banis, only missing 1 field goal. Coaching staff, I feel like has good things going for them. I don't know how much I would change other than light a defensive fire under that team. Hopefully, Halfley helps in doing that because let's see, they're 15th in giving turnovers and 4th in forcing them, right? Okay, so we need to just give the ball away less on offense and kind of. I mean, I would be okay with staying the course on defense with being 4th and causing turnovers. We can move on.
That is the last one for the Packers.
Awesome.
So, sure.
Overall, I feel like the Packers are in a good position to get success. I'll wrap up my comments with saying they do need to fix a few things offensively and bolster the passing defense and the rushing defense. And other than that, I don't have much more to go with for the Packers.
The only thing, go ahead, Dustin.
Yeah, I think comment first is, looking at the stats, Jordan Love, his completion percentage was like 62%, right? Which is 10% off of the leader in the league, Jared Goff at 72, right? And so that's a big difference. And I remember Jordan Love was in the contract dispute to begin with because he wanted to be one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league. And it's 62% is nowhere near good enough. It does not warrant being a high paid quarterback. Like, and then your team was better at running the ball than passing. Like, obviously there needs to be some growth and some change there for Jordan Love. Again, this is not a bad team, but to me, looking at that, it's obvious where the change needs to occur.
The only two things that I would mention, I think the defense under Jeff Halfley was so much more improved than the previous year. I think he brought a whole lot of new ideas that helped that defense a lot. Previously, that Packers defense was just awful for like 3, 4, 5, 6 straight years. Whatever LaFleur's been there. But Halfley fixed it in a year, and I think he's got that team heading in a good direction on the defensive side of the ball. The other one is about Xavier McKinney. We know what Saquon Barkley did after leaving New York. Xavier McKinney did the same thing. Leaves New York where he was he was a good player, but he wasn't great. It comes to Green Bay, and he is immediately great after leaving New York Giants. And so, just have to razz on the Giants for a little bit, I guess. So.
I don't think I have anything to add. I think you guys covered it.
Okay. All right. Share again. Okay. My turn with the Minnesota Vikings. They surprised everyone. They went 14-3. Most of us had them picked to finish last in this division, or somewhere in third or fourth. They were excellent throwing the ball. They did allow a lot of sacks. On defense, they blitzed the most of any team in the NFL. They had the highest blitz percentage. Because of that, they also forced the second most turnovers as far as turnovers. 16.6% of drives ended in turnovers when they were on defense, and that's second best in the NFL. They did allow a whole lot of passing yards though, and that comes with the territory. When you're a great blitzing team, sometimes you're leaving guys open, and if you don't get to the quarterback, you're leaving one-on-ones. That's just how it works with blitzing. Sam Darnold had a renaissance season. Everyone left him for dead, but he went to the Pro Bowl this year, throwing for 35 touchdowns and 4,300 yards. He had 2 bad games to end the season, the one against Detroit and the one against whoever was in LA in the playoffs. 2 really bad games. The 2 worst games of his season came in the final 2, and that may really come to bear when he tries to get a new contract this year. So, but yeah, he played a great season except for those last 2 games. Justin Jefferson is all world, 103 catches, over 1,500 yards, and 10 touchdowns. He is. It changes every 5 years or so, but right now he is the best wide receiver in the NFL, and there's not a debate about that. Aaron Jones was great coming over from Green Bay, 1,100 yards as well. Jordan Addison is a great compliment next to Justin Jefferson. Jalen Naylor did well as well. Brian O'Neill was a solid right tackle. He went to the Pro Bowl over there. Cam Robinson probably saved their season at left tackle, though. They have Christian Darrisaw there, who's an all-pro type of left tackle. He broke his or dislocated a knee or something earlier in the season, so was lost for the year. They signed Cam Robinson from Jacksonville, and he played well enough to keep them upright. But 9 penalties is a lot. Andrew Van Ginkel was fantastic last year. He had 2 pick sixes on screens. He picked off screen passes twice and took them back for a touchdown. Almost did it again in the playoffs against LA. Really good player, Andrew Van Ginkel there. Jonathan Grenard also 12 sacks last year. He did really well coming off the left side, and Andrew Van Ginkel coming off the right. Byron Murphy was signed off the street and ended up having 6 interceptions, went to the Pro Bowl, named second team All-Pro, and they signed 2 other corners off the street as well, 2 has-beens, really, Shaquille Griffin and Stephon Gilmore. But they both played fairly well for the Vikings in hoping that they could get someone to play for them. Harrison Smith never ages. He's about 36, and he's going to play for another 8 years probably. But no one really to point out except TJ Hawkinson. He was hurt for the first half of the year, but he's really the starter there. And Christian Darrisaw I mentioned earlier. On defense, Ivan Pace is that other linebacker that comes in and was really good. He was an undrafted player last year, and he's proven to be really good. Andrew DePaula is another all-pro long snapper for the Vikings in this case. I don't know how you determine that he's good. Like, I don't know how you determine that for a long snapper, but they did for him. So Will Reichard was a rookie, had his ups and downs. Kevin O'Connell did he win Coach of the Year? I think he did, right?
I don't know, but he looks like he
Yes.
smokes more weed than me in that picture. Oh, what? You guys taking that?
Yes, he did win Coach of the
He
Year.
did. He won
Yeah.
Coach of the Year for turning that team around, and he has probably the best offense. He's a great play caller. Wes Phillips is the offensive coordinator, but Kevin O'Connell calls the plays. And Kevin O'Connell is a great head offensive play caller, and he probably has the best defensive coordinator other than Steve Spagnuolo in the NFL, and that's Brian Flores, who just has crazy schemes that really screw with people. So. All right, so discussion about the Vikings. Obviously, it starts with Sam Darnold and saying how much of that was Darnold and how much of it was Kevin O'Connell that is just a quarterback genius, because we saw what Kirk Cousins did or didn't do in Atlanta once he left Minnesota. Is Kevin O'Connell that good of a coach with quarterbacks? And if Sam Darnold goes somewhere else, will he turn back into the pumpkin? How good can this team be with Kevin O'Connell doing all the things that he's doing? That's my question.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with your take on it. I mean, I'm not sure what else to add. I guess one question that I have is, what's going to happen with JJ McCarthy? Is he going to, if the Vikings decide they want to stay with Darnold, does that make McCarthy want to do anything, or vice versa? That's just kind of what I'm wondering. But other than that, I think you hit it all kind of on the nail of the head. Is Kevin O'Connell is doing great there. So.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree. I like the direction that Minnesota is going with their talent and with their coaching. I don't see, there's not a whole lot of room for complaint or improvement at 11-3, right? Was that their record? So it's not terrible. It's not a bad record. So you just again, it's crucial games. So at the end of those crucial games, losing those is always tough. But I think as an overall performance, there's a lot to look forward to for the Vikings.
Yeah, I think that really the only question mark there is the quarterback. Is Sam Darnold going to have a regression? Is JJ McCarthy going to play, and what's he going to be like? And so look at the weapons that they have on offense, especially with Justin Jefferson, and just really don't want him to be underutilized because of weakness in the quarterback position. And so I don't know the answer. I wouldn't know what to suggest, but that's what I see.
Yeah. I shared this accidentally at the beginning. I'm going to share it again right now. This was the beginning of the year, how we picked it. Congratulations, Yancey. You got them all right on. Lions, Vikings, Packers, Bears, in that order. You were the only one that got it right on. All of us had the Lions in first place, but no one else had it in the right order. Dustin had the Bears in last, and our dad had the Vikings in second, but that was the only other ones that had it in that order. So no one had the
Nice.
Packers in third except you. So
Sweet.
so yeah. Okay. So again, we had a kind of impromptu PTI this week that Cody introduced, and so Dustin, I promise we'll do everything we can. Maybe we'll even do it at the beginning. How about we do that? How about we do PTI at the beginning next week, instead of a memory. So that's how we'll start next week, and then we will cover the SEC in college football, and we'll cover the AFC South in the NFL, and we'll talk. We're going to be talking about college basketball here pretty soon. We might have a lead up to it. So those are kind of some of the topics we'll talk about. Anything else we need to hit next week or talk about this week?
I think we did it. Good pod,
Okay.
guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.